You can never whip these boys if you don't keep you and them separate. I found that out in Birmingham. You've got to keep the white and the black separate.
We received bomb threats virtually daily at our home. Ku Klux Klan would come by and throw out flyers and leaflets letting them know that you had been visited.
Brown versus Board was a traumatic moment for the white South. Schools and the indoctrination, particularly of young whites into the system of Jim Crow and white supremacy, was critical to preserving segregation.
The implication for white parents in the South was not just about separation, but about superiority, and if your kids are sharing the space, it's going to be much harder to maintain that kind of social arrangement.
And so it wasn't just the fear that this place was going to be a place of integration and they would be social mixing. It was really the destruction of the schools of white civilization that was so central to perpetuating white supremacy.
Brown versus Board drew a swift reaction in the South. White politicians, through the massive resistance movement and the signing of the Southern Manifesto, mobilized to defy the federal court's orders.
In places like North Carolina, the disagreement or the anger that existed around the Supreme Court's decision was very palpable. I remember growing up seeing signs on the billboards throughout North Carolina with big pictures of Chief Justice Earl Warren, with big writing above it saying, "Impeach Earl Warren."
North Carolina leaders came up with the Pearsall Plan, which gave local school systems the power to assign students to respective schools.
They, I think, understood that desegregation was inevitable, but they also thought that the best way for that to take place would be very slowly. They were afraid of violence on the part of whites, a reaction on the part of whites.
This was seen across the state, as brave African-American families had to endure threats of violence during the desegregation of schools. Dorothy Counts was forced to withdraw from Harry Harding High School after 4 days of nonstop harassment.
Durham was actually out in front, and the petitioning of the McKissicks and some other African-American families actually helped desegregate the schools in Durham, particularly Durham High School.
When I integrated 6th grade, it was still difficult and challenging. I mean, you had people there who would basically tell you how their fathers were involved in the Ku Klux Klan. They didn't hesitate to use the N-word in referring to black people. There was a sister of mine who went to a restroom, and you had girls who tried to duck her head into a commode. You regularly had people who might try to trip you when you were walking, or going downstairs, or push you.
Similar incidents were common for African-American students throughout the country. Although Brown was written into law in 1954, true integration didn't occur until 1971, when a federal court case out of Charlotte, North Carolina, mandated busing nationwide. Wake County and Charlotte-Mecklenburg's busing models successfully created diverse schools, while Durham struggled to pool white students. However, the hope for mixed schools was short-lived. By 1999, busing was no longer federally mandated.
For a whole variety of factors, including the withdrawal of federal support from the courts for desegregation, we've really returned to a situation in North Carolina that's very reminiscent of the Jim Crow era, in which you have high schools that are increasingly segregated around color. I think something like 75% of the school system is African American and Hispanic now.
There continues to be a narrative about what Durham Public Schools is that is rooted in a pretty white supremacist narrative that says the school system is black and brown, we can't send our kids to that school. And so, yeah, we have a school system that is not desegregated and is not living up to the promise of the challenges to white supremacy that Brown versus the Board put forward.